Hey everybody, we'll be getting started in just a minute.
Am I in the camera?
No.
Okay. Then never mind. I was gonna put that stuff in the room, but I can't open it. I just told her to put the hand for the dogs, and I told her what movie, and she said they've already watched that. Computer's not working?
Yeah, your computer's completely froze.
Just use my phone if I have to.
Hey everybody, we'll be getting started in just a minute. We'll get everybody into the room.
It's just frozen?
Well, it's, yeah, your computer just, the screen won't refresh. Everybody, I see we got a lot of people coming into the room. We will get started in just a minute here.
She's leaving. Try shutting it down. It's not connected to any thing of yours, right?
No.
Okay,
No,
so if I
just
try
try it.
shutting it
Yep.
down and then...
Yep. Hey everybody, welcome to Wednesday night. We're having some technical issues with Janine's computer. It was working perfectly fine, and as soon as I clicked live, she's a co-host on this, her screen froze up and it wouldn't refresh and actually do that. So she's logging in again on her phone and going to try to get back in on her computer. So I see some people are putting in mystery box already. We're going to take the first 50 people and Janine will put their names on a slip. And if you're not familiar with the mystery box is a medium flat rate box filled with goodies. And toward the end tonight, we will draw one name out of the bowl of everybody who said they're interested in the mystery box, and that person will have the opportunity to buy the mystery box for $50, and that includes shipping within anywhere in the USA. If you're outside of the US, the shipping, we would get you a shipping quote on that. If for some reason we open the mystery box and that person doesn't like it, we'll end up giving them or giving somebody else an opportunity then, and we'll draw another name out of the bowl. So don't worry that you're going to get stuck with it. Tonight we're going to be doing doing clay leaves and making bowls and different things with them. So we're going to be working with, I'm going to show you how to use a slab roller, and we're also going to do it using a rolling pin. And I've got both of them set up here. And the first ones that I'm going to show you is using the, got to go the other way with it.
That's weird.
Yeah, the volume's backwards on her computer. Anyway, so I'm going to show you guys first using a rolling pin, because when I go out to do workshops, it's really nice to have a slab roller, but it doesn't always work to transport a slab roller and have that for the event. So I'm going to flip the camera down here. If you guys have questions as we're going, feel free to type in to the comment section. As Janine is watching for mystery box comments on there and marking those names down, she'll also watch for questions to pop in there. So what I've got out here is I've got some craft foam, and a lot of people work on canvas to roll out their slabs of clay, and canvas is great. What I like about these sheets of craft foam that I get at the craft stores is that it's smooth It doesn't have the texture of canvas, and it also doesn't absorb moisture as much as fabric canvas would. So you normally want to have 2 sheets of this material or canvas, whatever you're working with, and you're going to put the clay between there and roll them. I've also got some wooden sticks here, and these sticks are just from the trim department at a Home Depot, a Lowe's. They usually come in all different types of shapes and sizes. This one that I have has one side is a little bit wider, the other side's a little narrower. And these are used as a guide so that as we roll the rolling pin across the top of this, your clay, when you hit those wooden sticks, your clay will be the thickness of those sticks. So I can, if I need a thicker piece of clay, I can turn them on that side. If I need a thinner slab of clay, I turn them on that side. You'll find trim that are, completely square. These are rectangular. So I've probably got, a half an inch wide one way and probably 3/4 of an inch wide the other way on this. I'm just looking to see if the sticker that's left on there. No, it doesn't say what the depth of it is. The reason we use 2 pieces of foam is so that the clay goes in between those pieces of foam. So when I roll over the top of it, I get the smooth surface of this foam. It also prevents the clay from sticking to the roller. Sometimes if you're using a wooden roller and you're rolling right on the clay, you can have some issues where the roller gets kind of wet and then the clay starts sticking, and that can just kind of be a pain sometimes. The clay that I'm going to work with tonight is a mid-range stoneware. You can do this technique with any type of clay. It doesn't have to be stoneware. I just want to play around with some of the stoneware glazes that I've got, so I'm going to make these pieces with the mid-range clay. I've got some chunks of clay in here from past webinars. I'm just going to pull that off of the top. And your clay should be nice and moist so that you can easily stick your finger into the clay and it should go in easily. If you can't press into it that easily, the clay might be a little bit thick or a little bit hard, and then you probably want to get that rehydrated a little bit. If it's so hard that you can't even poke a tool into it and it's a solid brick, that clay, I hate to say it, is probably shot. You can put wet paper towels and things in there to try and soften that up. I usually find it's easier to just get another block of clay. Clay itself is pretty cheap. It's the shipping that usually is the most costly thing. So throughout the night, and I don't have a lot of items tonight, but we do the lives for free, but then we have some commercial interruptions. So as I'm using different things that I sell on my website, learnfiredarts.com, I will mention those items, and we've got them set up on the website, and they're numbered. So when you go into learnfiredarts.com, there's a section that is live event specials. And so the first item that I'm using is this clay cutter. A lot of you have gotten these. We have these in stock again. And this one, it's $16.95, and it's number 8. So it starts out with number 1. Number 1 is actually the mystery box. I'll talk more about that later of how to pay for that. But number 8, we did them numerically so that the first items would come up numerically on there and you wouldn't have to go searching for them. So the clay cutter is number 8 on learnfiredarts.com. The cool thing about this clay cutter is I can adjust this bar slides up and down so that I can cut the clay to whatever thickness I want. I'm going to be working with some rubber leaf forms, and so this rhubarb leaf was used to make this little raku bowl that I've got here. And so the first one that I'm going to do is the smaller leaf. Later on, I'm going to do this really big leaf. And so the thickness of the clay that I cut will depend on how big of a slab of clay I need in the end. So this one isn't a real large leaf, so I'm probably going to cut my slab of clay about this thick, and I just take that and drag that through, and that bar slides across the top of the clay, and I get a nice slab of clay cut off on there. Set the block aside. I'm going to set this between here, and then I'm going to put that piece of foam on top. So I've got my 2 sticks out here. I want to make sure that the piece of clay, if I just roll it in one direction, is going to be wide enough for my leaf. And this one will be just wide enough for this leaf, so I don't have to worry about rolling in the opposite direction or picking the slab up and turning it to go in a different direction. So I'm going to lay my other piece of foam on the top. I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll over that clay. Try not to do this too much that the camera and the table shakes.
While you're rolling, can you quick explain what the mystery box is again? Because somebody was wondering. They didn't catch that.
Okay, so somebody came in a little bit late, and I'll explain this one more time. And Janine, looking at her slip, it looks like she's almost up to her 50 people. So
people have posted twice wondering.
Yeah, Janine is not going to comment if she has your name in there. So once you put your name in, you don't need to put it in multiple times or ask if she got your name. If it came up on there, she'll get it. So the mystery box is a flat rate, medium flat rate shipping box that we fill with different goodies. And so if you're interested in it, toward the end of the night, we will open that box and show what's in there. And it is $50, and that includes shipping anywhere in the U.S. It's usually over $100 worth of materials in there. And the hint that I'll give you guys is the mystery box has pretty much everything to do with what we're working on tonight. A lot of times there will be some new products in there as well that we focus on, and I will show you guys what's in that box. If you don't like what's in the box, you can always decline and we can pass it on to the next person in line. So my clay, what I was looking for, and I'm taking the foam off now so you guys can get a better visual, what I'm looking for is that my rollers are rolling on the wood. If they're not hitting that wood, then I need to go over that clay slab some more. So as long as I started out with a slab that was thicker than these wood slats, I can get a nice, even, uniform piece of clay. If I don't do that, if say I don't have these wood slabs on or slats on here, and I just take the rolling pin and I roll this out, there's a good chance that it'll be thicker in one area, thinner usually on the edges, and what can happen when your clay pieces dry is they will crack, because thicker areas take a little bit longer to dry and thinner areas dry a little bit quicker. So you want to try to have that clay real uniform, and that's why I use the wood slats when I'm working with a rolling pin to do this. Now I've got a rubber leaf form on here. You can do this technique with real leaves. I happen to be in Wisconsin, and while it's gotten close to 70 the last couple days, which is unusually warm for us, we don't have any foliage outside to draw from. So I've got these rubber leaf forms, and I'll show you guys all the different styles and things that are available. We've got some specials on those on the website as well. The nice thing with these is it gives me uniform leaves every time. If I need to do a lot of the same leaf, I can do that using the rubber leaf form. Now, I'm going to lay that with the texture side facing into the clay. I'm going to lay that down on top of there. Normally, I would put my foam over the top and roll, but so that you guys can see, I'm going to just roll over the top of this. And you want to be careful when you first start out, because the leaf might want to move down. And so you'll just kind of roll back and forth and roll that leaf right into it so that you get the indentation of that leaf all around and all the way into that slab of clay. Now, if you start out with too thin of a slab of clay, your leaf is going to go into it and it's going to get so thin. And I'm going to show you on that big rhubarb leaf later on tonight with the real thick veins that this one has. If you look at the big thick veins that are in there, that on this thin of a slab of clay would actually almost poke through to the other side. So the bigger the leaf and the thicker the veins that you have on there, the thicker your slab is going to be, and I'm going to show you some other little tips and tricks as well. Got a question?
Well, a couple people have commented how great the foam idea, the craft foam idea is. They just started using it since they saw you on ClayShare.
Yep, yeah, and that's a great thing, and it's inexpensive, and if people cut into it and mark it up, you can flip it over, use the other side, and it's cheap to replace.
Is the craft foam just as good as a slab mat?
Yeah, so the slab mat, and I have a slab mat that I'll be using a material like that for my big slab roller that I've got underneath here. The slab mat is harder. It's a different material. This is real soft and flexible, so I think the slab mat is great too. These are great. The slab mat, if somebody takes a needle tool into this craft foam, they can make indentations and cuts in it. I think the slab mat is a little bit more durable, that it doesn't cut into it quite as easily. I use these mats in all my workshops. It's like kind of like a placemat. They can wash them off, they can flip them over, and it keeps their clay from sticking to the table and deletes or eliminates a little bit of the mess.
And then how thick are
The wood slats?
I think, yeah.
Okay, so the wood slats, I'm going to grab the tape measure here, and I always keep this handy because there's always something in these lives that somebody will ask about. So in the one direction, this is 3/4 of an inch wide. The other direction, it's a 1/2 inch. So it's like a 1/2 inch by 3/4, and I bought it in like an 8-foot strip, and I just sawed them into the length of the strips that I need. So if I'm creating bigger slabs, these might be twice as long, but for most workshops, we're working with smaller slabs, and that's where I've got these. And a 8-foot strip of that is usually a few dollars, and you can get quite a few. I think I cut these about a foot long each one, so I was able to get 8 of them out of the strip of wood. Any other questions? All right. So once I've got that leaf pressed into...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's another question.
If you use it in a slab roller, how much extra thickness do you allow?
So I'm gonna show the slab roller in a little bit, and I'll talk about that. Yep, that's a good question. All right. So you can take a wooden tool so that you don't cut into the mat. You can use a needle tool, but if you use that and you cut in and people dig really deep into it, they can actually cut apart that foam mat. So that's one disadvantage to the foam mat. So I like to use the wooden tools and just go around and cut around that leaf form. And I'm not too particular about making sure that I have every little inch of clay on there. A lot of times the little stems that are there, I end up not trying to save those, that they end up usually breaking off, so I'm going to cut right up to that stem. I can always add a stem later. And then I'll peel away that excess clay, set that aside, and now I've got this nice thick clay leaf. But if I just take this and if I remove this, I'll get real nice texture in there, but I don't like that real thick, clunky looking edge to make a bowl with it. So what I do with the edges of my leaves is I take my thumb and I pinch down and out and kind of bevel just that outside edge. So I get a nice thin looking leaf, but in reality, the leaf is still pretty thick, so it's going to be durable, and it'll peel away from the rubber leaf form really easily. If you get the clay too thin and you do this, what'll end up happening is you won't be able to peel it off of the rubber leaf form. Now I can go over the edges of this because they're a little bit rough, and I can take, and I know some of you are going to be like, oh my God, Mike's using water on clay. Normally
You
with...
say that every week, not...
I know, every week I say how I don't have water out on the table when they're doing clay puzzling and smoothing. On this, I'm really wringing the sponge out, and I'm just taking it along that edge, and I'm just smoothing that out a little bit. I could probably even do this with a dry sponge and not have the water out there, but eventually the sponge is going to get kind of gummed up and they'll want to wash it. So I'm just taking and just kind of gently smoothing that. You can also use, if you don't want to have water out there, you can use a flexible rib to go over and smooth, but you don't want to get it super duper wet. I'm going to set that mat out of the way. And then for my forms, you can buy slump and hump molds, which are plaster. And so a slump mold is something that the clay would go down into. A hump mold is something that sticks up that the clay would go over the top of. And in this case, what I use a lot of times is just bisque forms. So this is a piece of Duncan commercial bisque, earthenware bisque. And what's nice about the bisque, just like the plaster, hump, and slump molds, is they will absorb moisture, just like the plaster. So I can take this leaf form and I can peel this away. And I usually leave the clay a little bit thicker on this end so that I can grab that leaf and I can peel that back and get a nice clay form. There's a little chunk here that's extra. I'm just going to pop that off. And then I can take this and I can set it down into this bisque bowl, and I can take my sponge and I'm going to get the clay out of it, and then I'm going to really wring this out. I normally would have a dry sponge handy to do this, but I can take and press this down into the bowl to create that bowl shape. Now I don't want to just go and start pressing it in, especially if the leaf is large enough that it's covering the entire opening in the bowl, because there will be air kind of trapped in there, and you start forcing it down in and it'll bubble up somewhere else. So I usually will take and kind of lift the edge so the air can get out, and I'll just kind of gently press that down into the bowl so that that air can kind of escape on the other side. And I'm not pressing so hard that I'm losing the texture in my leaf, but I want to press hard enough that this kind of goes all the way to the bottom of the bowl so that this clay bowl, when it comes out, it's not real uneven on the bottom, and that it'll sit flat. And I can manipulate, the tip of the leaf. I can give it a little bend. I can take these sides and bend them around if I want. Just be careful as you're handling it that you don't overdo it and lose your nice texture in your bowl. Now this clay leaf can sit in here for a week, a month. It's not going to hurt because the clay isn't hanging over the edge anywhere. So as that clay dries, it's going to shrink. Most clay bodies, as they dry, will shrink, and it'll pull away from that bisque surface. I'm going to show you later. I've got wooden bowls here too, and glass bowls. You can use other types of shapes, and I'll show you guys how to work with something that is not ceramic bisque. I've got a whole shelf full of different size bisque bowls and things that I use for slumping pieces like this. Now, a hump mold, on the other hand, would be where I had explained how the piece would drape over the back side of it. Because I've got my texture on the inside of this piece, I don't necessarily want to drape it over something, because as I press it, it could affect the texture on here, and I wouldn't know it until I take it off of the piece. I can leave this on here, like I said, for a week if I want, or once it's firm enough, I can pop this out and set it aside to dry. Whenever I set pieces aside to dry, when they're clay, I'm always very conscious of the surface that I set it on. I want to set it on a surface that will absorb moisture. So I don't usually leave them on the foam mats because they don't really absorb much moisture. So things like drywall, layers of newspaper, a lot of times I'll hear people saying, oh, I did these bowls and I set them aside to dry and I got splits in the bottom. And my first question to them usually is, what kind of surface did you set them on to dry? And a lot of times they're setting them on a plastic tabletop, or they're setting them on a Formica countertop. And what happens is the air dries the clay on the top. On the underside, the moisture gets trapped between that plastic surface or Formica surface, and the piece doesn't shrink and dry on the bottom. It dries from the top, and it causes the piece to crack. Not having uniform thickness, that also can cause pieces to split. If you have areas that are really thick and areas that are really thin, the thin areas are going to dry faster than the thick areas, and you'll get some splitting on those pieces. So I'm going to set this one aside.
Hold on.
Oh, okay, and
Are you
there's
going to
a
put
question.
a foot on that?
You can. A lot of times I do raku with these pieces, and like this little bowl, it's just kind of a little trinket bowl, but I could do a foot on the bottom. I could do some little balls of clay on there to kind of create a foot, and I would usually do that once this has firmed up enough that I can take and pop it out of that bowl and it'll hold its shape, and then I'll either do a coil of clay to do a foot, or I'll do balls of clay, and then once I've added those on there, I'll take that and I'll press it down gently on a surface to make sure that it's level on the bottom and that the piece doesn't rock. This piece, being the stoneware clay, it's actually holding its shape really well, but it is still really flexible clay. So I'm going to leave it sitting in the bowl for a little while. I'm going to just repress this down in the bowl.
Someone did respond to this, thank you, Luann, but like, can you just give a real quick, someone was like, what did I miss about the water? Like, and she said, ordinarily you don't want water with.
Yeah, the only thing that I used the water was on the edges of the leaf, and I'll show you on the next leaf that I'll do. I'll kind of explain that again once I get to the next leaf. All right, I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to move this board out of the way, and we're going to use the slab roller to do a larger slab of clay. And I'm going to show you guys how to do drape forms, and we'll do just some plain ones that don't have the leaf impressions. So I'm going to set these aside, move this board out of here. It's always interesting setting up for this, trying to figure out how to layer everything and get everything organized here so that you can see it in the camera.
Are you able to show how to put the foot on that one that you made?
I just kind of explained that. It's just doing a ring of clay, and toward the end, remind me, and it'll firm up a little bit, and I can show how to do that on there, but it's really just a coil of clay or balls of clay being added onto there. All right, somebody had asked earlier about the slab mat, and this is a material that's similar to the slab mat, and it opens up, and this happens to be a Beveling slab roller that I'm working with, and they have the slab mat material, and it's a pocket. So it's basically two pieces of this material duct taped at the end, so it opens up, and it's cut to the size of the slab roller. On this side, you can see the roller here in the middle. And this particular slab roller, there's different types out there. There are ones where there's a crank mechanism here that you can raise and lower the rollers to determine the thickness of the slab that'll go through there. These Beveling ones work with wood shims, and so I've got these wood shims that go underneath here, and so you layer those because the gap between these two rollers, you can't see it in the camera where my hand is going through, that gap is probably 1.5 inches, and so I don't necessarily want my slab to be 1.5 inches thick. So I've got just a thin shim board, and there's different thicknesses of boards, or you can put multiple boards underneath. I'm going to open my pocket up here, and we're going to do a smaller slab to start out with, and I'm just going to get a ball of clay here, and I'm going to press this out. Normally I would really wedge this clay. I'm just going to wedge it enough so that I can roll this out in a slab. If you haven't wedged clay, it's kind of like kneading dough. So I'm kind of working it, and what I want to do is really work this clay together to eliminate the air pockets and to get the clay mixed together so that if I've got some clay that's a little bit more moist and some that's a little bit firmer, it's all worked together. I'm not going to spend a half hour wedging this piece of clay, but I'm just going to put this out here. You can still see lines and things in here. So do as I say, not as I do. When you go to do a slab, I would normally cut off the clay. Again, the thickness that I would want would be determined by how deep I make this cutter. And I'm going to need this big piece for doing the big rhubarb leaf that I'm going to show you after we get this one done. So this is going to be just a plain slab that I'm going to do. And so I'll kind of work this piece of clay so that it's kind of uniformly thick, and it's not so thick that when I start rolling it through the slab roller that it's going to get hung up on here. And I'll show you because this will probably get hung up as I roll it through. So there's a roller over here that I'm turning, and so that turns the roller and it pulls that slab through. And of course it's going through perfectly and not getting stuck going through there. And I would normally just do it on the other side, but I've got the camera set up, so I'm going to roll this back. And I'll open this up so you can see that this slab got rolled out. Now the thickness of this is way thicker than I need this to be. This is just going to be a free-form slab that I'm going to drape. So to get this thinner, I'm going to put another shim underneath to create a thinner slab of clay. So this next shim that I put under is going to be one that's a little bit thicker. And I'll slide that right underneath my slab mat. And I'll roll this through again. Now, the reason I do this in gradual times of rolling it through is because if I put a bunch of shims under there and I have a thick piece of clay on here and I go to roll it through, it's going to get to a point where the roller just kind of spins and this mat can't get through because so much clay gets built up on the edge of the roller. So I'm going to roll this through again. And this time I'm just going to pick it up and lift it over to the other side so you guys can see it better. And when I open this up, I've now got a more elongated slab of clay. Now, if I wanted this to be more square, instead of rolling it through the second time in that same direction, I would have picked this up and I would have turned it sideways like this so that when it rolls through again, it'll stretch it out in this direction. I don't want to go a whole lot thinner than this. Now I can leave the edge of this as it is if I want a really rustic looking type piece of clay, or I can take different materials and put it into the slab and roll it through again. So I've got all kinds of crazy stuff here. I've got things like raffia. I can take and lay the raffia all over the top of this and roll it through, and I'll get a real random impression in there, that's what I'm going to use on here. But I've also got, and some of you have seen in the other lives, like this is a table runner that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and so it's got an interesting texture, and it's like almost like a felt type material, and so it's got some depth to it, and I could roll that texture. I've got another one that I found that's a leaf design, great for doing some fall projects. This was a plastic thing that I found at Walmart that was actually like supposed to lay in the bottom of your sink to be decorative. I don't think I would want this in the bottom of my sink, but it makes really cool patterns in clay. And this was another table runner. You know, you can use stamps, you can use the rubber leaves, you can use different things to roll through to add the different textures. So I'm going to kind of spread this raffia out, and we're going to run this through again, and we'll see what we get for a texture. Yep.
Does a smaller roller still exist?
A smaller slab roller? Yeah. There's actually on the website, we've got the Shimpo one, and we've got that on special right now. It's a smaller unit that actually folds up, and it's only about 14 to 18 inches long, and the sides fold in, and there's a board that goes in it. It's a really cool slab roller. I usually have those for when I'm out teaching workshops because they're really easy to ship. They're only 37 pounds, and I can ship those out to workshops, and in a studio setting, they can be put away if you don't use a slab roller all the time, and so I really like those little portable ones. I like the big tabletop ones, but they do take up space.
And then what kind of mat are you using? I'm guessing.
This is the mat that comes with the Bailey extruders, or slab rollers. I have their extruder as well, their big wall extruder. And it's a mat material that comes with their slab roller. Otherwise, there is a material out there called Slab Mat that is made by, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. They're out in Colorado. Somebody else may know.
Someone says they have a large North Star slab roller, and someone recommended using a plastic tablecloth and folding it in half with a flannel on top and bottom for easier cleanup.
Yeah, and you can, any material. This, what I really think this mat is, because this one side is shiny and the inside is really dull. When we were ripping the linoleum out of our kitchen, this reminded me of linoleum. And so you could probably go to Lowe's or somewhere and get some odd remnants, or go to a construction site where a new home is being built, and you probably could get some scraps of linoleum from the builder to use to create slab mats as well.
Oh, and which shims do you use for most of your slab work with the Bailey? I use one thick one below and one thick
Yep.
Plus one thin above, it gives me a 1/4 inch slab. Is that the correct?
Yep, and that's what I've got. I've got a thin one and a thick one here, but it's still giving me a pretty decent thickness to my slab. And because this is a larger slab, I want it to be a little bit thicker to work with.
Apparently, the company name we were thinking of is Slab Mat.
Yeah, well, Slab Mat, but it's the manufacturer of it is in Colorado, and it's a family-owned company. They bought the Slab Mat from somebody else, and they manufacture it, and they're out in Colorado. So I'm sure if you go online and search for it, a lot of ceramic suppliers and distributors sell them, and you can probably buy them direct. But look at that cool texture that we got with just the raffia in the clay. So now what I've got here, I should explain before I drape the clay over it, this is a ceramic vase. And it tapers, so if the vase is standing up, it tapers and gets wider at the top. If I take and turn that vase upside down, I've got a really nice form that tapers outward, gives me a nice base. I use the same form for doing glass with a glass separator on here, and I use it with clay to make draped forms. So I'm going to set this here, and then I'm going to pick this slab up, and I'm going to drape it over the top of that vase. I'm going to move this over to the other side because I think we get a little bit better view, and I might take the camera and slide it over here a little bit. So I'm draping this over, and then what I'm doing on the sides is I'm just kind of going in and I'm pinching this a little bit and kind of pulling it in so that it forms around that. And I'm going to turn the camera up here, and I will hold this up so that you guys can get a better view of what I've done on here. So this will just sit on this ceramic vase and dry, and when it's done, when it's firm enough, I'll take this and I will flip this over. I can't do it now because the clay will flop off of here, but I can go and I can kind of make some more folds in here if I want to get this a little bit tighter and closer, and you can manipulate that clay to make your forms. Again, that vase is ceramic bisque, so the clay will not stick on that surface, but it will absorb moisture out of that clay, and once it's firm enough, I can pop that off of there and let that piece get fired. Now the edges of this clay, I left it really organic and rough. If you don't like that look to it, you can go back and you can do textures on the edge. You can do different things on there, but I do a lot of these bowls like this. I can also take that slab and I can do some leaf impressions. So there are smaller leaves, and I can take those smaller leaves and I could do impressions all over the top of this. And I'm just going to roll this through to show you. I've got a whole bag of the smaller leaf forms.
Oh, it's slabmat.com, but it's Stone Leaf Pottery.
Stone Leaf Pottery, that's it. Thank you. Yep, that was who I was looking for.
But their website is actually slabmat.com.
Yeah.
Even though it's
Even and
the
it's
name of a company.
yeah, and so Stone Leaf Pottery bought Slab Mat from whoever was manufacturing it a few years ago. Yeah. So I put those rubber leaves all over on there. I'm going to roll this through. Just going to roll it back because it's easier for you guys to see. And now I've got those impressions of those leaves. Now if I want, I can also take a towel, and I've got just a washcloth here, and I can take this washcloth because I like the texture in this cotton washcloth, and before I pull those leaves out, I can go over and I can press with this towel, and this will give me texture all over, and as I go around the edges, I'm kind of pressing the edges and tapering them a little bit. It'll still be really organic and textured, but this towel will get rid of a lot of the marks and things that are in here. And of course I had turned this slab of clay over instead of rolling another one. And then I can take a tool, and I'll take a needle tool, And I can just grab the edges of these leaves and I can gently pull them back, and I've got these nice leaf impressions. And these leaves, they last forever. So I haven't worn one out yet. Now I can take this slab, and a lot of times too, people struggle to pull, they want to try to pull the slab and they end up marking the edges where their fingers are on there. Instead of trying to lift that up, just lift your slab mat up, and I'm trying to get this in the camera here, and just peel the mat away, or if you're draping this over, you can actually pick the whole thing up and drape it over your mold. But I'm going to take this and put it, see if I've got a small enough wooden bowl here, because I want to show you guys something not to do. So this is just a wooden bowl that I got at, it was Old Time Pottery, and they're these lovely cheap wooden bowls, and there was a set of 3 of them. So I'm going to use this, and now this is kind of a glossy wood, so I don't want to put the clay right on here, because if I do that, it's going to stick to the inside of that bowl. So what I do in that case then is I take a towel and I put it over the top, and look, there's a cute little owl on this towel. I get all of our old towels from our bathrooms and stuff. I can put that over it and flip it over, but I want the leaves to show up on the top side. So I'm actually going to take first, and I'm going to flip the whole slab over. So I'm going to close this pocket back up. I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to flip it over so that my leaves are facing down. I still have kind of that raffia texture on the back side of this. I'll lay my towel over the top, and then I'll put my bowl over the top of that, and then I'm going to lift up from underneath, and my hand is going to, one hand is on the bottom of the bowl, the other hand is on the underside of the slab mat. I'm going to flip that over into my bowl, and by putting that towel in there, I can then take and I can maneuver and pull that clay slab into the bowl, and that clay or that towel also stays between the wood bowl and the clay piece, so that the clay doesn't stick to the bowl. And then I can either use my hands to do this, or I could take the sponge and I could use that to kind of press this down into the bowl. And again, I can manipulate the edges of this. What I want to avoid doing, though, is taking this edge and going down with it too much, because as this clay dries, it's going to shrink. So if I've got stuff going over the edges of this bowl going downward, as it shrinks in, there's a good chance it's going to crack along those edges. So I want to make sure that I leave space in there, or have these edges kind of up, or have them go down out a little bit further, and I can let that sit in there and dry. I can take and I can lift, because I can reach under the towel, and I can kind of bend in and make this a little bit more fun with little waves in the bowl. And I can let that dry. Once it's firm enough, then all I have to do is pick that towel up and lift that up out of there. Now, if you wanted to do a foot on the bottom of this, again, you would let it get firm enough so that you could lift it out, and then we'll add a coil, and I'll show you on that little leaf bowl how to do that. But that's how easy that is. And the towel will just kind of peel away from the piece. The towel will absorb moisture, so you don't need to worry. It will stick a little bit, but it will pull away. I wouldn't leave things in bowls like this with towels for like a week. I would probably give it a few hours, and then I would remove it from the bowl once that clay is firm enough and it's not so loose and floppy like this. If you have areas that hang over the edge and it does droop down too much, you can always prop sponges or newspaper or another towel underneath there to lift up that edge. But it's a really easy way to make bowls using all different shapes. So it could be a wood bowl, a glass bowl, even ceramic bowls. I'll go to Hobby Lobby and I'll find in their clearance section where they've got like all those gifts, they've got giant bowls sometimes, and I'll buy them on clearance for like $3 or $4. They're ugly. They have really ugly designs on them, but I'm putting a towel on it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. All right, any questions on that? All right, so now I want to show you guys doing the really large rhubarb leaf, which, oh, by the way, happens to be one of the items that we have on our website. So the large rhubarb leaf is under the number 3 items. And so what I did is I put all the medium leaves as number 3, and then they're all individual on there. The large rhubarb leaf is $22. This is made from a real rhubarb leaf, and it's really a nice big size. And I'm thinking somebody's going to ask what the dimensions are. And I'm going to grab the tape measure here. So this leaf is about 14 inches wide by about 14 inches lengthwise as well. So this makes really nice bowls and drape things. So number 3. I've also got number 7 on there is that slab roller, the Shimpo slab roller I was talking about. And that also includes free shipping anywhere in the US 48. Hawaii and Alaska. I just had a package today. It was a 3 or 4 pound package that was going to Alaska, and the package was about $50 worth of stuff, and the package was going to cost $70 some to ship to Alaska. So sometimes the shipping to Hawaii and Alaska is a little crazy. All right. So because this is a large leaf, I'm going to need more clay, and that's why I was saving about a half a block of clay for making this large leaf. Now, if I just take this block of clay and I set it on the slab roller and I try to roll it through, it's never going to make it through those rollers, even at that thickness. It's just going to push the clay slab. So normally you would taper the edge so that it would go under the rollers better. But even if I taper this edge, it's still going to get hung up. So there's different things you can do. Some people like to slice this into thin pieces and lay them side by side and roll it through the slab roller. The problem with doing that, of laying thin slabs of clay in here, is you now have areas where that clay was cut and they're joined together, and a lot of times they'll crack in those areas on big pieces. So you always want to try to keep a nice solid piece of clay to work with. Now I could sit here and I could press this out and really work this and flatten it out, but there's an easier way to do it. So the plastic bag that the clay comes in, leave that clay in the bag, and then you want to, and I'll see if I can get the camera to show the floor here. So I just take this bag and I drop it repeatedly on the floor, and watch what happens. And it makes loud slapping. The dogs will probably start barking, thinking somebody's being beat down here. Oh. And Janine's like, my ears. So, but watch what happens. I'm going to show you guys how this is flattening out just from dropping it on the floor. Well, here, I'll show you on the bottom how that's flattening out. So I'm going to drop this a few more times. And I'll actually kind of throw it at the floor to really get it. Good way to take out frustration, stress. All right, and I've got a pretty good thickness now. So it's actually like stretched the bag out as well, so it's hard to get the bag off of there. So I usually have to cut the bag or rip it off of that clay to get that out. But it's a very easy way to flatten out a big, thick block of clay. So I can lay that on the slab roller, and I can then roll it through. I'm not going to flatten this too much more. I left this a little thicker than it needed to be, but I want to put it through the roller to show you guys what will happen if you start out with too thick of a piece of clay and try to roll it through. So it's rolling, and now you can't probably see it too well. The board is pushing through from that bottom roller, but the clay is so thick right here in the middle that it can't get through any further. So I have to back it up a little bit, open this up, and then work this out. And so that's why we don't put all the shims underneath right away. So I'm going to pull one of these shims out. Back it up. I'm going to pull this thicker shim out and leave the thin one underneath. And I'm going to actually take and turn this around the other way. And I'm going to just take and kind of flatten this out. So my hand, the motion that I'm making is I'm kind of going in this direction. So it's down and out. Kind of flatten that out. And I can do the same thing on the other end. Now I'm going to want this leaf to be wide enough for this. So I probably am going to have to roll it through in one direction and then roll it through in the other direction. So I don't want to get it too thin to start with. Or I can kind of take and work this out on each side. That camera's really shaking. I'm going to hold the camera while I do this so it's not quite as... And I can take this and I can, flip it over. Another way to do it is to take the slab and kind of bring it down and slam it against your slab mat. But I know that's going to get everything moving as well, but you can do that to get it to stretch a little bit as well. So we're going to taper this edge down. I'll try rolling it through. I have a feeling it might still get stuck in here. I might have a little bit too thick yet. Nope, it's going right through. And roll it back. And I've got a nice big thick slab. It's big enough for my leaf. And now this is the one where I was talking about how thick the veining is in here. So when I roll this through, it's going to press that leaf down in. I usually will start out with the edge that doesn't have as much veining toward the top so that goes through first, and then it works through and presses that deep veining. If you start out with the deep veining on this side, as that slab roller goes, it might get hung up on there, or it might just push the leaf and drag it to start out. So I usually have it so that it's tapered at that end. I'll put this back through. All right, so we've got our leaf impression into this piece. I'm going to take my wooden tool and I'm going to cut around the edges to get the excess clay. Yeah, we learned that if we leave the TV on upstairs for the dogs, they don't hear us down here. They get like, oh my gosh, we want to be by you guys. You've left us all alone for an hour upstairs and we can hear you, but we can't come and get to you. And so we've learned to turn the TV on and then they don't hear us as well downstairs. But Cameron turned the TV on and she turned it on really loud. I think Grandma's here and she can't hear. All right, so this is going to look like a really thick slab. But now remember, these veins that went through this leaf, some of those main veins that went out on there, remember how thick they were? So I'm just going to wipe the clay back. Look at how thin the clay is where that vein in the rubber leaf form is versus how thick it is over here. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to do my tapering just like I did on the other leaves. And on this one, because it's so big, I could, hold it like this and do it, or I can just leave it laying down and just lift up the side where I'm doing the tapering. And just using my thumb to pinch that edge and bevel that clay. And this is where somebody asked before about the sponge, that, oh my gosh, Mike is allowing water to be used on clay, and I'll show you in a minute for whoever was asking about that, what I'm going to do with the water. I'm kind of avoiding the bottom of the leaf, and I'll talk about that in a minute, why I'm not beveling that right now. This is a nice fresh batch of clay that we got too, and it's really nice and creamy and soft. So I want to leave some thick area down here so that I can easily peel it away. If I bevel all of this right up to that stem, it's going to be so thin where that stem is that I bevel that it's just going to rip and tear there. So I'm just going to bevel kind of up to this area and leave it thick where that stem was. Now I can take the sponge. Normally on a leaf like this, I would take the sponge, get most of that water out, really wring it out. You don't want to turn this into muck. And you can take that sponge and just smooth out these edges. There's very, very little water in this sponge.
There's someone from New Zealand watching. We're trying to figure
Oh,
out
cool.
what time it is there now.
I just had somebody, I think we had an order that went to New Zealand not too long ago, and I think actually that person may have emailed me today. I'm looking to see what the name of the person is, if I would remember, but I can't see.
It was Mariana Chow.
Oh, nope, I don't think that's
3 p.m. on the 11th, so it's almost a whole day.
almost a whole day later. Well, thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We've got a lot of orders that are going out to international customers, and sometimes I look at that shipping and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just crazy what it costs sometimes to ship. But if you can't get the stuff, you don't have much of a choice. So I'm just going around one more time here. I'm rinsing the sponge out, and I'm just kind of working these edges. And the reason that I bevel it is so that this leaf isn't so thick and clunky on the edge. It'll give the illusion that it's a thin leaf, but it's thick in the middle. Now, where those veins are, if I just take this and flip this over into a bowl, which I could do, I'm going to get where those main veins are. I wanted to kind of remember where those were because I need to add some more clay in those areas. If I just take this off, I showed you how thick this stem was in here and how thick that vein. And that vein went halfway up that leaf, and there were a couple veins that went up this way as well. So I want to take and add some extra clay on the bottom to build up those areas where those veins are before I take it off of the form. So I just rolled a coil, and because this clay is really nice and soft and I can really mash it together, normally you would score and add slip in there, but this clay is really soft. I can just take some water, kind of wet that area. I know, oh my God, I'm using more water. And I'm going to press that on there, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to bevel or blend these edges right into the clay. So I'm pulling it down and working that in, and then I want to smooth that while leaving it a little bit thicker down that vein. And if I didn't do this, and the first few leaves that I did, every single one of them as they dried, they cracked. I tried putting plastic over them. I tried slowing down that drying process. Some of them, when I would go to lift them to put them into the kiln, because they were so thin down the middle, the leaves were splitting and breaking. So I'm going to really work this in. And I'm going to do the same thing where the other veins. And so those veins all went out from that same area. So I can roll it, I can flatten this, and I can just go out from there and do the same thing, adding a coil.
I forgot, before someone asked about the status of their mystery box from a couple weeks ago, maybe you just want to talk about the second batch of those. Maybe.
Yeah, so actually the first batch, a lot of them have gone out. There are a few of them that have not. Those are all going out tomorrow and the next day for the mystery boxes. We have a lot of the other ones that are almost ready for that second batch that was ordered, and so those will be going out as well. We had about 1,000 orders come in that Wednesday that we did that live. Between Wednesday and Thursday, we had almost 1,000 orders come in, which is the equivalent of 2 reams of paper, if you want to visualize how big that stack was. So we've been trying to really make sure that we pack everything well and not rush, and we've had tons of boxes going out. Some of you heard that Janine got a promotion last week, and she's now in charge of doing the labels for all of the packages. And the time that it takes to pack and to do all those labels, we're getting everything out as fast as we can. Most of the orders from that week will be out this weekend. And I did send an email out to a lot of the people explaining about a few of the items, some of the sphere molds and the clay extruders. We just got a skid of extruders in yesterday. The Kemper extruders came in yesterday, and we got basically a skid of them sitting in the middle of our garage right now. So those will be shipping out. And the Shimpo, unfortunately, we bought everything Shimpo had, and we wiped them out, and they didn't have enough to even fill all the orders. We had basically the equivalent of 2 skids of extruders that we got orders for within a matter of 2 days. And most of them were within a matter of like 2 hours. So, all right, so I've got the clay built up on here, on those areas, and you can see that it's kind of dimensional. And now I want to do this in a bowl as well. And I've got another wood bowl here that will be a nice size for this. And again, I'll put a towel over the back of this. And if I want, I can add texture to the back side of this just by when I lay that towel over the top. I can go over and I can gently press this towel into the back side, and it will give me, and I'll peel this up so you guys can see the texture that I'm going to give. So I don't really need to worry too much about it being perfectly smooth, or I can just do this without pressing it, and the back of this will stay fairly smooth. But this gives a nice little texture from the towel. And again, instead of trying to lift that slab up and get it into the bowl, I'm going to leave it laying flat now. I'm going to put the bowl on top of the towel, and then I'm going to reach underneath my slab mat, and I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to flip this over and then peel this away. Now my rubber leaf form, I'm going to pick it up from the back edge here, and you want to just gently start peeling that back. You don't want to do it too fast or too quick. And your leaf will have really cool texture. And then I can kind of, because the towel is under there, I want to shift it down this way a little bit more. I can just pull that towel and position it.
Valeria Atchison said I deserve a raise, so we'll tell her you doubled my salary.
Okay, Valeria, and then your prices are going to go up on everything.
No, double my
Double her current, yes. You know what, we did that actually 2 weeks ago. We doubled her salary, and Janine joked that doubling nothing is still nothing.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Are the additional coils smoothed flush to the leaf form?
They're not flush, so they do stick up. I had held it up there, and I thought it showed in the camera that there's, yeah.
That question was written before.
Okay, yep, and it does kind of stick up underneath there a little bit, and that's where too, and I'll show you on that little leaf, we're going to add balls of clay on the bottom. I would do the same thing on here, so you don't have to worry about those little bumps where the veining was making the bowl rock, because you'll add either a foot or some little balls of clay on the bottom to get that to stand even, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm going to bend the tip of this over just a little bit. Again, I don't want to bend it around the edge of the bowl, because as this dries, it's going to want to shrink, and it might crack and break that tip off. So I want to leave that tip kind of sticking up. I can bend these out a little bit, and I can let that dry, and I've got this cool, awesome bowl.
A lot of people are commenting that it's a great problem to have, and it really is. We're grateful.
It is. We're very grateful.
We're very, very busy, but we're grateful, and
yeah.
Please be patient.
Yeah, it's been pretty stressful.
Well, how thick did you roll this slab?
So this slab, if you have the Bailey slab rollers, I just used one thin shim underneath. And so this slab was probably about 3/4 to an inch thick when it started, but then I beveled the edges. So when you see the edges of this, it doesn't look so thick and clunky. And I'm just going to put another piece of clay out here and show you guys what I mean by that. So I see a lot of times people will do a slab of clay, and they do, whether it's a real leaf or a rubber leaf, they'll do their impression. And I'm just going to do the edge of this and cut it to show you And then they just go around and they cut the clay. And their leaf is that thick. And so when they put it into a bowl, the edge of it is just so thick and clunky looking. And that's why I go along and I bevel it along the edge so that it gives the illusion that the leaf is nice and thin, but in reality, it's still thick in the middle. So I think this is the cutaway from that one. So you're asking how thick it was. This is, should just leave my tape measure sitting right here next to me. Yeah, this is close to between 3/4 and an inch thick that slab started out. And then keep in mind, you're putting that leaf on top of it and you're rolling that through. And so that's pressing in. So you're probably ending up with close to a little over 1/2 an inch thick on that slab when all is said and done. And then on the edges, you've got it beveled to be pretty thin along the edges.
There's another question. I gotta find it now, it looks like. Okay. How long would it? Oh wait. What is the mold you're using for the leaf? Did you?
The bowl, this is just a wooden
just a
bowl.
wooden bowl.
Yeah, it's just a wooden bowl. You can use bisque, you can use glass, you can use plastic, ceramic. If it's ceramic bisque that's not glazed, you can put it right on there. You don't have to put the towel under it. The towel, though, does make it really easy to maneuver. And when this is dry enough, I can just take and lift the towel right up to lift that bowl out of the clay piece out of the inside of that bowl. So even if it's a ceramic bowl, you can use a towel. You don't have to, but it does make it easier to slide that slab around. It gives texture to the backside, and it also absorbs moisture. So on that wooden bowl or a plastic bowl or a glass bowl, that's what we want to do.
How long would it take a leaf of that size to dry?
That was actually the next thing that I was going to talk about. So drying time. You don't want to take these pieces and set them in front of a heater or in front of a fan and try to dry them too fast. If you do that, you're going to probably crack them. So it's best to just let them sit. If you've got air circulating and heat vents or air conditioning vents blowing, you can throw a plastic bag, a garbage bag loosely over the top of it to slow down that drying process, because if a fan or something blows on it or heat blows on it, it's going to dry wherever that air is hitting or wherever that heat is hitting, and it's going to dry and it's going to shrink there, and other areas that won't shrink as quickly, like the back side of it won't get as much air hitting it. So it's best to just let it dry. I usually, on thick pieces, let them dry for at least a week. Smaller pieces might only have to dry for a few days, but I always, on my clay pieces, anytime I've got clay going in the kiln, I do a soaking on there. And a lot of the newer kilns have the ability to program them for so many hours to do a soaking at the beginning, and it basically goes up to between 180, 190 degrees, and it holds for however many hours you put in. So if I have a really full kiln of clay pieces that I think, well, some of those pieces might have a little bit of dampness in them, I'll do an 8-hour hold at 180 degrees. It doesn't cost that much for electricity to do that. Or I might do a 2 or 3 hour hold if the kiln isn't real full. If I'm really worried, and some other people have built stuff and they made it really thick and I'm really worried about it, I might do a 12-hour or even a 20-hour hold just to be safe. I don't like to have anybody's pieces blow up in the kiln, so I usually overdo it with the drying time on there. Now, also use caution. If you're in an area where it gets real damp at night, cool and damp at night, I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I set it out, once it was fairly dry after a few days, I set it out on the patio table, and it sat in the sun at 90 degrees all day and got nice and dry, and I left it out there for a week, and then I fired it and it blew up. Why did it do that? Well, if it gets real damp at night where you are, gets cool and damp, that clay will absorb moisture again when it's damp out. Or if it's real humid, the clay will absorb moisture, and when you go to fire it, it's moisture in there that turns to a gas and expands and causes the pieces to pop. Everybody always thinks it's, if I have an air pocket in there. Air pockets, I have had pieces get fired successfully with air pockets in them. It's when moisture or gases get trapped in that air pocket and they expand and they cause the piece to pop. So, a soaking is really best if you can do that in your kiln. If you have a manual kiln, just put it on low for, several hours.
Okay, someone asked about that. They don't have that type of kiln, so low or
Yep.
medium.
So low, and it might
What
be, if you've got
temperature?
a kiln that is a manual kiln, you can put under their temperature. It might be if you have 2 or 3 switches on that kiln, it might be that you just put the bottom switch on low, and that will generate enough heat in there. It might require that you babysit a little bit. I would really recommend using a pyrometer to monitor the temperature in there, because if you get over 200, 250 degrees, pieces will pop. And
Someone suggested 180 degrees.
yeah, 180 to 190 is what you hold it at. If you get much over that, if you get over 200, you risk getting too hot, and the moisture will turn to a vapor or a gas, and you'll have your pieces will start popping. And I've done it. Many of us have done it where we try to force stuff to dry too quickly. So, all right. So I'm going to take this piece out. This hasn't set long enough that it's firm enough, but I'm going to show you how to do a foot on a piece like this. So we'll pretend that this is firmed up. I don't want it to be completely dry, because if the clay is completely dry, you're taking moist clay and you're applying it to the surface. And if you do that, the clay that's dry has shrunk. Now you're taking wet clay and you're putting it on there, and as that wet clay dries, it's going to shrink, and it's going to usually let go on there. So you can do either balls of clay or you can do a coil of clay. If you've got a clay extruder, great, because you can get a very uniform coil. I'm just going to roll a little one by hand here and check it for size. That's about the right length there. I'm going to thin this out here a little bit. I've got a little bit thicker area on my coil. I would score that surface, and I don't have my fancy scoring tool here, so I'm just going to use my needle tool, and I'm going to score where that ring is going to go on. I would score the backside of the coil. I would put some slip or water in there and then wiggle that and attach that. I don't want to do it because this bowl is just going to flop out if I do that, but that would be adding a foot onto there using some slip and wiggling that so that those score marks kind of lock together. And then you would turn this over and you would stand it up and then kind of press on it to make sure that that foot is flat so that your bowl doesn't rock and twist. The other thing that you can do rather than doing a coil is doing balls of clay on there. So I'm going to take and break this into, we're going to do 3 balls of clay. You want to have the balls of clay fairly uniform in size.
Someone wants to know if you sell foot cutters.
No, I don't sell foot cutters at all.
And then what raku glaze do you use for the lids? It's a nice color.
That is our RG 650 Jade Gloss that's on that particular piece. It's our most popular raku glaze. It's a gloss finish. We've got one that's a matte finish as well, a couple different matte finishes. So I can do 3 balls of clay. The area where I would attach those, I would score, and I would space these out. I've got those score marks on there from before. I would score the backside of these, and I would use slip or water, or some people use vinegar to attach these. I didn't mix up slip, so I'm just going to use water. I'm going to dip into the water, and as I push those on, I kind of twist it to lock those score marks together. And then I'm going to take this piece and flip it over. Oops, I didn't space those out very well. Okay, there. And again, this is really floppy. Normally this would be firmer than this, but I'll flip it over and then I'll press down where those balls of clay are on there so that my bowl sits nice and even. And as I turn this back over, you'll see how it flattened out each of those little balls of clay on there so that they will sit nice and even. And if you're going to do raku glazing on here, doing a foot or those little feet on there raises the piece up so that I generally don't glaze my raku, the bottoms of my raku pieces, because if you use stilts and you have experience where you take something out of the kiln and the stilt sticks to it until you get it out of the kiln and then the stilt falls off and hits the ground and smashes, you don't want to do that with a 1700-degree stilt that is hitting the ground and bouncing up and landing on your foot, catching you on fire. The leaf that I've got here, though, you'll see this actually is glazed all over. I actually make stands so that I can stand these leaves upright in the kiln, and when I reach in with those raku tongs, I grab them this way and lift them out. So I'm not trying to get those tongs underneath there to lift these bowls up to get them out. And those stands are just a very crude, I'll quickly show one here. I just take kind of a slab of clay and I pull up an area on here.
The text-to-speech had you saying raccoon glazing.
Raccoon glazing, I've seen that before in one of I did a raku webinar a while back, and when I rewatched it said, yeah, raccoon.
When you do a hold, do you crack the lid open and remove 2 peats, since you already leave one of the peats out? And how high do you crack the lid open?
So yeah, if you're going to be doing it in a digital kiln, like my kiln has a vent on it, and so I can put it in there, close it, and because I have a vent on the kiln, it draws that moisture and the air out of the kiln. So the peephole plugs are all plugged and the lid is closed. The holes that are in the lid in the bottom draws the air through the kiln. If you don't have a vent on your kiln, you can leave the kiln propped. You can leave peephole plugs out so that moisture can get out of the kiln. A lot of moisture in your kiln will settle in the brick and it will work its way to the bottom. And a lot of kilns have a steel plate on the bottom instead of stainless steel. They have a steel plate, and those steel plates will rust out quicker. It's not the end of the world, but a lot of moisture in there can cause that. So allowing the lid to be propped until you feel comfortable that those pieces are dry and ready to continue firing. Leave the peephole plugs out and the lid propped for that time.
How do you glaze the spheres?
I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe because they're round.
Because they're round, and if you're talking about raku firing that, yeah, I mean, generally if it's a regular firing, I would stilt the spheres. If I'm raku firing, and I don't have my raku, yeah, I do have the raku sphere right here. I would. The very bottom of this, there's no glaze on there, but it turns black inside the trash can from the smoke, so there actually isn't glaze on there, so I just set those right on the shelf when I fire them. Same if you're doing them with stoneware. You don't want to glaze the bottom because you don't stilt stoneware, and so I just leave that area bare on there.
Do you sell the stilt holders for leaves so that you can raku them on the side?
That's what I'm actually just showing right here. Great question. So
Holder,
this is, yeah, it looks like a taco holder. So these are very crude, and I have dozens of them out by my kilns in different sizes. So bigger leaves, maybe, and they aren't that much bigger, but the design behind this is these areas stick out on here to prevent the piece from wanting to tip. So that kind of stabilizes it. So when I stand the leaf up inside there, I've got these little points that come up. And so this kind of comes in and comes to a point. And I have the same on this other side. And then I have a thin pinched edge along here. So as that leaf sits inside there, it's only touching a little bitty spot right here, a little bitty spot right here, and then usually it's leaning back on a little point there. So your glaze, these usually will have a little bit of glaze right there, a little bit there, and a little bit there. But when you're pulling these out of the kiln, this glaze is soft. And so it's real easy to pull it away. The stilt doesn't usually, or the stand doesn't usually stick to it. And so as I pull that out of the kiln, This just sits down in the bottom of the kiln and cools, and I take it out after the kiln has cooled. But that's a good way for things like bowls and plates, and that's why I do a lot of different ones of these based on different shapes. So sometimes the space between here will be wider, sometimes a little closer if I'm doing real flat pieces. Sometimes this is a little bit wider. So it's a great way to be able to do raku a whole lot easier by having the pieces vertical in there, because getting in and getting down around the edge of this to lift it can be a challenge with the tongs. So that's all it is. It's just and again, let these dry, fire them. I made this with stoneware clay. Usually I make them with my raku clay body because they're gonna kind of get shocked a little bit in the firing as well. Any other questions?
Could you put kiln wash on the stand?
You could put kiln wash on the stand, but what's going to happen then is the kiln wash is going to stick and get embedded in the glaze. It's a good idea, but that kiln wash will get embedded in the glaze, and when you pull it off, you're going to have this rough area there. When you don't have glaze on a little bitty spot, it shows up black in raku. So it's not noticeable like you would on a traditional firing, where if the glaze came off of a little spot, it would be really noticeable. So, and usually with 3 coats of glaze on there, I don't get a bare area. It's usually still got a nice layer of glaze over the top. All right, while Janine checks if there are other questions, I'm just going to show you guys some of the different leaf forms that are available here. And some of the specials. So there are medium leaves, like the smaller rhubarb one that I did. There are, all of the individual leaves are number 2, and they're medium leaves, they're $12.95 each. Or you can get the number 6 as an assortment of the medium leaves, is $79.95. So you get the small rhubarb, you get the cincirca, you get the small cabbage, you get a grape leaf, you get the lily pads, you get the oak leaf. Those all come in an assortment, or you can buy them all individually. Then there's the large leaves. They're $15.95 each, or there's 2 large assortments, and I believe they're on special for $75. I forgot to mark the price on here. But there's the arrowhead. There's this one that they call a sunflower. I call it a large lily pad. It's a really cool one. We've got the wild cincirca leaf, which is kind of like, it looks like kind of a maple, a large cabbage, the hollyhock, the canna leaf, catalpa leaf, wild gourd, water lily, and sycamore. Those are all the large leaves. The little leaves, there are small leaves that I showed a few weeks ago during the live. And right now the manufacturer is behind on those because I ordered so many. I almost gave her a heart attack when she saw the order that came in. And so I'm not even showing those tonight because they're out of stock right now and they won't be available probably for a couple of weeks once we get all of the orders filled that have come in for those. And I know a lot of you are still waiting for those.
Talissa asked a question and maybe I missed it. I know Luann was trying to answer too. Maybe you talked about this, does it show on the piece where it was sitting on the stand?
No, it really doesn't, Talissa, because you've got the 3 coats of glaze on there, and when you pull it off, you get very little glaze is stuck on there because that glaze is actually molten. When you're pulling it out at 17 to 1800 degrees, that glaze is fluid, and sometimes you'll actually get like a stringer coming off a little bit, that you'll get a little string of glaze because the glaze is basically glass at that point. It's molten glass on the piece, and so sometimes you'll get a little stringer, but rarely is there anything noticeable on there with that. So, and with the matte glazes, it's usually the gloss glaze that'll leave a little glaze on there. The matte glazes, because they're so matte, they don't really leave any deposit at all on that stilt. So it's a good question.
Okay.
I'm going to grab the mystery box while Janine looks for...
Can you take the stamp and make it into a vase? Is it possible?
The stamp and make it into a vase.
Take the stamp and make it into a vase.
I'm just going to try to scroll down here too and see if...
There might have been stuff up ahead that...
I'm not sure what that is. Make the stamp... Oh, so like
stems.
so maybe you're talking about like the leaves, like taking the leaf and making it into a vase rather than just a bowl. And you can. And I actually brought, this is a little form that I use for glass slumping as well. It's actually a ceramic tumbler mold that Gare had years and years ago. And drape the leaf over it. I'm going to see if this little leaf will actually work. I'm going to just peel the little feet off the bottom. This poor leaf has gone through a lot tonight. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drape it. I'll flip this back down here. I'm going to take and kind of drape it around this.
She said yes. So that's
Okay.
basically what she was asking.
What she was asking about. So I can take and kind of drape this around, and I would probably use a larger leaf than this, but then when I turn it over, I've got, you know, kind of like a vase on this, but if it was a larger leaf and it draped over more of that mold, I could get a nice vase type shape on there with having the textures, or like I showed that raffia before, or any of those placemats, you can do textures and things like that in there as well. So yeah, absolutely. And that big vase that I had too, I've done those where I've really draped them down the sides, all the way around on the sides, to make more of a vase shape as well. Yep.
Someone asked how you brisk fire the Rakuten clay. I think it's autocorrect.
The Rakuten clay.
How you brisk fire the Rakuten clay. Yeah,
So the raku clay, if I'm working with a raku clay body for any of this, it's fired at an 04. Moist raku clay or raku slip can be fired to 04, just like your greenware that you're doing mid-range or low-fire earthenware clay bodies. And then, you know, the raku firing is a different process of heating it rapidly and doing a whole. And there is, if you go back into my recordings, and if you go onto my Facebook page, up on the top, there is how to access all the video recordings. And I'll actually maybe with my phone do a video to show, because I get a lot of people asking for the recordings, and rather than scrolling through all of my posts on there, there is a Raku webinar that I did, just kind of a brief one with the gnomes, and I'll post that later tomorrow. I'll do a video on how to access those videos, so you don't have to scroll back through. All right. Anything else?
Nope. I think
All right.
people are ready for the mystery.
They're ready for the mystery box. All right.
Do you need? Wait, no need to use anything to make sure the leaves don't stick to the clay.
No, you don't need to like put talc or anything in there. And that's where, if you pull those leaves back, if you start to peel them away from the clay and the leaf just sticks to it and it rips apart, the clay is too thin. That's why I only bevel on the edges, and I make sure the rest of the leaf is nice and thick, because they will peel away like butter coming off of there. Like you've heated up butter and it just peels away from it. All right, any other questions before we draw for the mystery box? All right, I'm gonna turn it down and I'm looking away. And I'm mixing them up some more. Samantha Schubert. No, I'm going to reveal what's in the mystery box. If you don't care for what's in the mystery box, we'll draw another name out of here. So let us know, Samantha, if you're in here, and as soon as I show what's in there, if you can comment. If you don't comment within a couple minutes, we will just draw another name out. So inside of the mystery box, I told you guys that it would be probably having to do with what we're working on tonight. Inside this box, there's a bunch of leaf forms. Surprise, surprise. So we've got the grape leaf form. We've got the oak leaf form. We've got the hydrangea. We've got the large water lily. Gourd. We've got the small cabbage leaf. We've also got a set of the wood sculpting tools for doing your cutouts and things on there. We've also got some new items, and I always take advantage of the This is used for cutting through bisque and glaze. Type tip on there, it's real rough, and it works good for cutting through bisque. It can be used with, all right, it can be used for cutting through greenware, or if you've ever had holes for tree lights where it gets plugged just a little bit and you can't get that plastic light in there, this is great for putting it in that hole and just going back and forth with it, and you can cut that glaze away to open those up on there. We've had a lot of people asking for those metal ribs that I use for smoothing clay. We've got those available individually now. They're normally sold in the regular pottery kit. This one from Kemper is a little bit more rigid, which is nice because when you're doing things like the cones and you're smoothing the clay and things, this will really smooth the clay well. And then we've got this texture tool. And this one can be used for scoring. It can be used for, I use this a lot for adding texture to pieces. These little wires that are on here can be bent apart. They're real rigid, and you can bend them apart as far as you want to space them, and you use that on wet clay for scoring or just adding really cool texture to pieces. So that's everything that came in the box. So if Samantha wants to let us know if that box is okay.
I mean, she said she was here and she
Can actually
for them.
well, it's right now on my screen it's saying leave page. For the quantity there, and then it'll ask for your address and stuff, and you can pay for it there, and then we'll get that shipped out to you.
In the last few minutes, there have been weird interruptions with the live video, so there must be
Oh, okay.
going on. I think
Something's,
we're almost done.
yeah, we're
It
pretty
just
much
started in the last few minutes.
done here. Sometimes Facebook does strange things. If you haven't watched, Paula McCoy does live videos on Tuesday nights. I know Carol Warnicki does, I think, on Tuesdays during the daytime. Brenda Bartz does her dry brushing, the bisque box. That's on Thursday nights. So check out all the other options out there. I know I'm forgetting people. There's other people doing videos as well.
For sure.
All right. All right. Perfect. So thanks for joining us tonight. We will be back next week. I don't know that I've posted yet what we're doing next week. I tried to post ahead for the clay projects. I tried to do painting one week, clay the next week. So I think I have to post about next week. And then is the following week the week that we're gone, I think. So 29th, the week of the
24th, and then the 31st is when you're gone.
Yep. So yeah, the 31st.
2 more weeks, and then
2 more weeks you guys are on your own for one night, or maybe I'll do some type of a recording and play it for you at 7 o'clock. I don't know. But I'm not going to be
maybe
home.
I'll have to do this living without you every single week.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us tonight. If you guys have other questions, feel free to type it in. Send me a message. Right now my email is overflowing every day, so if I don't get back to you in 2 minutes, please don't send me 5 more emails going, why aren't you responding? Because I will get back to you as soon as I can. So thanks for joining us tonight, and I hope everybody has a good week, and I hope the weather stays good for everybody. And I'm going to have Janine actually close this out, because I don't know what I did with my mouse. It's buried here somewhere.
I know how to, because I'm...
Oh, okay. Well, then I will reach over here and I will do
you
it.
actually have to...